What's going on, Raider Nation? Let's recap the draft, shall we?
Let's go, Raider Nation. Let's go, Raider Nation. Are you ready for some football? You ain't ready for no football. You ain't ready for the Oakland Raiders. It's the invasion of the Oakland Raiders. Are you ready for some football? Yeah. You ain't ready for this football. Ah. Here we come, baby. Just win, baby. Feel the storm of the cold autumn wind, baby. It's the Oakland Raiders. Get your mouthpiece. You in the black hole with the black beast. This ain't black gold, this is black silver. Commitment to excellence, we deliver. And we'll play past regulation. It's the invasion of the Raider Nation. Let's go, Raider Nation.
So in the first round, the Raiders selected Karl Joseph, the safety out of West Virginia. Now this pick may have been puzzling for a few people, but I actually looked deeper, and it's a good thing Bruce Irvin tweeted about him. So it made me look him up a little bit before. This is a pick that most people viewed as a reach because he was available maybe in the 20s. But when we look a little deeper at the context, the Falcons took a safety a few picks later. They might have been thinking the same exact thing because Dan Quinn and Ken Norton both are Seahawks. They might have been thinking they could be a hard-hitting safety that they both want on their defense. So are the odds that he would have been available in the 20s? We don't know. The Raiders, if they traded down, they might have missed him, and if he's the guy that they had high on their board, they would have lost him. So you have to kind of take him if he's the guy higher on your board. One thing I do think is that he was probably top 10 on the Raiders board. Reggie McKenzie's board is always different than everyone else's, and of course, everyone's board is different. Don't always go with the media's draft board, whether it's Mayock or Kuiper. But surprisingly, Kuiper and Mayock had Karl Joseph in the top, I think it was top 19. I believe Kuiper had him like 13th or something, so I was actually really surprised. I don't usually trust that guy, but his draft board actually had Karl Joseph ranked highly. So that being said, yes, when you take away the quarterbacks and you take away a couple character guys, it's very clear that Karl Joseph was a top player on Reggie's board, and there was no reason to try to trade down for it. I don't know how high it was, but it's definitely sure that it was in the top 10, if anything. He probably was 10th on the board at minimum. I already mentioned you need a safety, you need a hard-hitting safety if you want to have a 4-3 defense. Doesn't matter who it is, you need a hard-hitting safety. So they drafted for need, but coincidentally I think it was just need and best player available. I don't think Reggie was forcing a need here with the safety. So yes, the safety position was a concern, and I did talk about it a little bit, but I didn't think the class was very big. So in some ways, hey, they drafted a need, they picked up a guy because I don't need to see a practice squad guy as your safety. With the retirement of Charles Woodson, and I think Reggie Nelson is a veteran, short-term guy, so you need a long-term safety, and this guy is supposed to be him. Hopefully he brings a lot of what Jack Tatum did, is that hard-hitting. I liked what I saw from the tackling film. That looked really good. I just don't want him playing like corner man-to-man. I think if he plays center field, I like what I see. So to me, it's a good pick. In round 2, the Raiders drafted Jihad Ward. I know what you're thinking. His name. Don't be careful. I know what you're thinking. But Jihad Ward, obviously we've heard about it. It's a good story. The guy's an up-and-coming, had a very tough life and worked his way really to be a draft pick in the NFL. That is impressive in a lot of ways. But yes, Illinois, this is a guy who's raw. A lot of physical tools. This is Reggie McKenzie banking on upside more than anything else. And I don't like using the word upside. I'm sensitive to that. But the guy's played very minimal in football in general. He didn't play in high school. He was a junior college transfer. So it's very short. His football life's been short, but he knows enough about the game, and he's got the physical tools. It kind of reminds me of a defensive line version of Menelik Watson, because Menelik Watson was also viewed as raw, minimal experience. Of course, he's injury prone and all that. I don't think the 6-week injury is that big of a deal. Everyone's talking about that. That's not the issue, but I don't see him playing much. This is a project. It sounds good physically and all that, but I don't know if we can afford that. Of course, if we want to win now. Now, the other guy I could compare it to is a guy named Jason Pierre-Paul. He, of course, when he was drafted by the Giants, he had a lot of physical tools, did not play football very much at the college level, and he turned out to be all right. But Reggie is trusting his staff. He's trusting everybody that he can develop because this is not a short-term pick. I don't like it as much because second-round picks to me need to be playing right away. If you draft a guy with high upside and raw talent, all that, do it in round 3 or after. All those projects should not be in the first or second round. The only way you can get away with this is if you're like a Super Bowl contender. Otherwise, I don't like these project picks, but it is what it is. With the third pick, the Raiders selected Shilique Calhoun out of Michigan State. This is a pick I am excited about. This is a pass rusher. I talked about how I wanted defensive line. Well, I got 2 of them. But Shilique Calhoun is the pass rusher that could play right away immediately. And I'm surprised he fell to the 3rd round. This is a guy I was interested in a while back. Pretty much possesses everything you want in a pass rusher. Explosive, he can come in right away. I mean, I think Jihad Ward will be rotating with Justin Ellis and everybody on the interior. But when you look at Shilique Calhoun, he could play at defensive end right away. This isn't a smaller guy, but still big enough to be a pass rusher and immediate impact. This guy, don't be surprised if this guy comes in right away just as a pass rusher. I like this pick a lot. Round 4, the Raiders traded up to get Connor Cook. They had 2 5th-round picks coming into this draft. If everybody forgot, they had basically when they traded with Dallas, they traded Bryce Butler to Dallas, and they moved up their 6th-round pick and made it a high 5th-round pick because Bryce Butler stayed on the Cowboys roster. So you have 2 5th-round picks. You can use one. You can use your own and move up. So they kept the Dallas 5th-round pick, and they moved themselves up a few spots to take Connor Cook. Now, why you take a quarterback when you have Derek Carr? Everyone's wondering. It's called talent. Reggie probably had Connor Cook high on his board and saw the value too much that you can't pass it up. You take the top-end talent and you trust your board. I would not be surprised if the first 4 picks were second-round talent grades at minimum on Reggie's board. Connor Cook, see, I liked him at Michigan State. I was a fan of him. There were character concerns, and that might have been why he fell to the 4th round. But there's talent. Of course, a few years ago, I was excited over Tyler Wilson, and that all backfired. We all know how that was a few years ago. So this time, yes, Connor Cook, we hope he can develop. If it's a 4th-round pick, it's not too much, but this should motivate Connor Cook. He was supposed to be a 2nd-round pick, and now he knows he's going to be a backup quarterback in the league. So we'll see what happens. He'll compete with Matt McGloin. And also, remember when I talked about the offensive line being 1 injury away from being screwed? Well, so is the quarterback position. You don't want to see Matt McGloin out there starting for the Raiders. So you need to have depth. You do need to have that adequate backup just in case. But down the line, he can be an asset for another team. Everyone already talked about how Kirk Cousins became one after the Redskins drafted RG3 and Cousins in the same class. So I'm not saying he'll turn into Kirk Cousins or anything along those lines, but he can become an asset or even a top trade target in the future. We look at how the Patriots got Matt Castle and traded him for a 2nd-round pick to Kansas City. Something like that down the line is what could be in the future. Of course, this is Green Bay thinking, with Reggie McKenzie coming from Ted Thompson and his background. You know, the Packers drafted Brett Hundley a year ago in the mid-round, so and they already have Aaron Rodgers, so it's very possible that they just want talent and they want to develop for the long term. With the 5th-round pick that the Raiders got from the Dallas Cowboys, the Raiders selected DeAndre Washington, a running back out of Texas Tech. He's a Red Raider going to being a Raider, just like Michael Crabtree being a Red Raider. Washington looks like a Darren Sproles type of running back. Speedy, good in space. Maybe he could do kick returning, a little bit of special teams. I did want a running back, and they needed one for depth. He could be a good 2nd or 3rd down running back. And if they could utilize him the way Darren Sproles has been over his career, I mean, I'd be impressed. That's always good to have that one short guy who's fast and can be good at space. So I also want to see him on the screens. I would want to see screen plays with him. So we'll see what happens there. That is a pick that the Raiders have needed, and they found a guy in the late rounds. So good for him. I like this pick in the 5th round. With the 6th round pick, the Raiders, of course, traded C.O. Moore to the Indianapolis Colts. They got a 6th round pick for him. I mean, unfortunately, change of coaching staff will do that. So with C.O. Moore being traded over to the Colts, they got a 6th round pick. They used it on Corey James, linebacker out of Colorado State. This guy could develop into a pass rusher. He's a little bit of a tweener. Some people don't like using that word because that means you're either too small to be say a lineman, but you're too big to be a linebacker and all that. Or he could be just too small to be a linebacker in general. There's also that. He's fast though. This is a guy to me that could play right away on special teams. He could be a gunner. For a guy of his size, he's fast. I've read, but he could also develop into being a pass rusher later. You can never have enough pass rushers. I talk about how you can never have enough linemen on both sides. You can never have enough pass rushers, and I think Corey James could develop into one of those guys in the future. This was a guy whose stock went up during the Senior Bowl, so I think a lot of these projections had him undrafted, but I think the Senior Bowl, he made an impression on some people, and definitely the Raiders liked what they saw. I think their speed, there's a lot of interesting things with him, just that he can get down the field and be a gunner, special teamer. So, and that's what I see in the short term. We'll see if he plays defense later, but yeah, I like the project pick. 6th round. What do you got to lose? In the 7th round, the Raiders selected Vadal Alexander out of LSU. This is a guy who is projected as a mid-round pick, and he fell to the 7th round. I'm not even sure why. People may have saw that he was one-dimensional. Supposedly he could play tackle and guard, but really he's a guard, in my opinion, when I look at the size and the measures. And I finally got the offensive lineman I wanted. Everyone's harping me for wanting an offensive lineman, but it's important to always have offensive linemen on your team. You just never know when an injury piles up or some fluke thing happens. So Alexander, this is a guy who could play, I think, can really develop into a decent guard. And I never thought I'd be excited over a 7th round pick, but I like Vadal Alexander. I thought this guy was going to be drafted earlier, and he fell all the way to the 7th. So a lot of these picks I've liked. This is a pick I'm actually excited about as well. Didn't think I'd say that, but being excited over an LSU pick. It's been a long time, so yes. Well, I hope Vadal Alexander does well. He could be a backup guard. He should be behind Gabe Jackson and behind Osemele. So we'll see what happens in the future. But he is a guy that I think they can plug him in the event of injuries or just develop him in the long term. Good pick, Reggie. All right. So for this entire Raiders class as a whole and thoughts on this whole draft. Yeah, the only pick I'm not into a whole lot is Jihad Ward because it was a 2nd round pick who doesn't look like he could play right away. But I think Reggie made it up for it, taking Calhoun in the 3rd round. I think he could play right away. These other guys are obviously projects, and we can't really judge them. But Karl Joseph will most likely play right away. That is something that they've needed, and I want to see a guy who can hit hard and do all those things in a safety. I'm excited over him. I really like what he can do, and people are worried about a torn ACL. Well, that was so long ago that he should be ready by training camp, so I'm not concerned over that. People say his stock only fell because of the torn ACL. He could have been a top 10 draft pick if it weren't for that. So, yeah, I'm willing to take that risk. It's not like he was injured in the middle of January like someone else was. So, yeah, I'm actually I'm impressed with pretty much this class as a whole. I don't grade classes, and I'm not going to grade this class, but I am optimistic for what this class can bring because Reggie has shown in the past couple of years he's finally gotten it right. His first class, he had no help. There was no picks. Second class was a disaster, but his third and fourth class, we saw promise. We're seeing guys develop, and Reggie wants to build this team through the draft. So these guys are going to be the big factors in the long term. We'll have to find out what they do 3 to 4 years from now, like every other class. So, yes, I like what I'm seeing. I don't know what's going to bring in the future, but I am thankful that Reggie did address needs. I would have preferred maybe one corner in the later rounds, maybe one project that's there. I don't know if I trust David Amerson, but I would have wanted one corner. That's just me nitpicking, but everywhere else he addressed positions that I wanted. Took a long time to take a lineman, but I got one at the end. It's also interesting, wide receiver to me is more wide open than people think. I think an undrafted free agent might rise up. I would not be surprised, at least, because there's enough room on the roster for a wide receiver to do something. So yes, that being said, we'll see you guys later. Give me your thoughts on this draft as a whole. You don't have to letter grade it, but I'd like to know your thoughts on all these picks. So, we'll see you guys later. I will finish up my grading the Raiders draft series probably later, but for the most part I'm going into hibernation. So, we'll see you guys in August if you don't see me grading the Raiders draft picks. We'll see you guys later.